Good morning and welcome to this edition of Healing Moments with Martha. I am so excited about our guest today. Today we welcome Jamee Shermer from Vancouver, Canada. And listen, you know how passionate I am about healing and how I got started on this whole healing journey of my own wounds and traumas back in 2012 and 2013. And I'll just say this today, we will be looking at a different type or different approach to healing. I'm convinced there is not one way to get our hearts healed. God is very creative. And so, without further ado, I welcome you, Jamee. Thank you so much for taking time out to join us today.
Yes, thank you so much, Martha. I'm so honored to be here. Thank
Oh,
you.
thank you. And this is like the first one I've done in a while. And so I really had wanted to talk with women, especially. And thank you for telling, parts of your story today. Just a little bit of background of Jamee. She's married to Jeff, whom I'm friends with as well. They're just a fantastic couple. I've come to love and care for both of them deeply. And she has her master's in counseling. And she has been working, I think, for about 14 years with big brothers and big sisters. And I just think that is just phenomenal. And they have two children. They have, I call a bonus daughter, and she just graduated from high school, and they have a 7-year-old little boy. How fun. So life is, I'm sure, always an adventure, your household, Jamee. But if you would just give us a snippet of your background, like where you grew up, and just a snippet of that, of where you grew up and what it was like for you, and maybe when you became a Christian.
Yeah. It's actually Washington, Vancouver, Washington. And so, I've lived in Vancouver my whole life. And so I'm a native to the Northwest. And yes, and I grew up with, two parents at home. My mom and dad both worked. And, I grew up in a pretty safe and comfortable environment with two loving parents. And we would go to church when I was a child. We would go to Lutheran church, and I didn't always like it as a kid. That, like there were parts of
Yeah,
it I liked, but then parts I thought was kind of boring.
yeah.
And then when I was 15, I was invited to a Young Life camp.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, are you familiar with Young Life?
I am familiar. Yes, ma'am. Very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I went to Woodleaf, it's called, and just really felt the Lord's presence and kind of just felt him prompting me. And so that's when I invited the Lord into my heart at age 15.
Wow. So you've been on a journey with him for a while then. So
Mhm.
that's so fabulous. I always encourage parents to never squelch, that fire burning in children, because, you know, age, don't question the age when your children come to Christ, whether they're 3, 4, or, teenagers, especially. Just don't question it, embrace it. So that's just fabulous how the Lord used that.
Mhm.
So fast forward, so you fast forward to adulthood. And I know you have your master's in counseling. So, where did you get your master's in counseling, and what led you to do that? Was it out of something that happened in your life, or was it as a result of seeing a need in the local community?
Yeah, so I've always kind of been interested in psychology in community college. I loved my psychology classes. And so I just kind of always had an interest. And my mom would tell me that I was kind of like the counselor for my friends. They'd always come to me for advice and stuff. And so I just kind of always was drawn to it. And I also went through, when I was 19, I went through a time of depression.
Mm,
And so that was a very challenging time in my life. And I started to go and get my own counseling after that time, and have kind of always been in and out of counseling since then, because
okay.
I just see the value in it. And then I felt one day I saw this one day I was driving, I was working at a, what would you call it? Industry that's like, I can't remember what it's called, but basically like on an assembly line kind of situation.
Okay.
And I wasn't, I didn't want to do that work. I felt the Lord kind of pulling me in a different direction. And I went to a conference earlier that weekend. And as I was driving, I felt like the Lord said, I have more for you. And it was so clear to me. And I just felt like he was inviting me to go back to school because I had gone to community college, but I didn't graduate. And so he invited me to go back to school and finish. And I didn't know what the next step was after that, but I just knew that I needed to do that. And then I started touring colleges and checking things out. And I went to Cascade College. And then I found a friend at my church actually was going to Western Seminary. And so she invited me to one of her classes. And I just loved it. And felt so drawn. And so I already knew that I wanted to go there. And so that's where I got my graduate degree.
Awesome. Thankful for that friend, right? I mean,
Yes.
sometimes all it takes is an invitation for us to, see the next step. I love that. And I also love the tenderness of your heart that you could hear the Lord prompting you to, like, I've got more for you, because I love that. So you graduated and got your master's. Are you married at that time or still single?
No, I was still single at the time and I wanted to be married.
Okay. All right.
And so that was actually part of my journey, like the desire to be married and waiting. And it felt like waiting for a really long time. But yeah, it wasn't until after I graduated that I met Jeff.
Okay. So you graduated, met Jeff, got married. And so you're all living in Vancouver, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So had your work with brothers and sisters international, big brothers and big sisters, had that started already or?
Yeah.
Okay.
So after I graduated, I started looking for work. I thought I wanted to be a school counselor, but I then saw how much stress school counselors are under. And I just was like, I don't want to be like the crisis intervention person because that's kind of what I was seeing. I mean, there's more to it than that, for sure. But that part of it, I was not excited about. So I just wanted to look and see what else was out there. And I just stumbled across Big Brothers Big Sisters. I'd heard about it. I knew it was like mentoring kids. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'll check it out. And it was just actually a part-time position. Applied for it, did a couple of interviews, and I had got it. And I had actually been on several interviews before that and nothing was coming, up. And so they're like, yeah, let's hire you. And then I ended up coming on full-time. I thought I'd just be there for a couple of years. 14 years later.
Oh, I love it. So you were on staff with them for full time, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so so you served as a counselor on staff for them?
No, I'm not. Okay. I'm not a licensed therapist, but I just have my master's in counseling. Okay. Gotcha. So I do. I started out doing enrollment. So I enroll people into the program, kids and families and mentors. And then now I kind of transitioned into supporting all the matches. So the volunteers and the kids matches. So as they're going through and going on outings and doing things like that, I check in with them and see how everybody's doing.
Oh, how wonderful. I'm thinking that there will be some long-lasting relationships as a result.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot. That's like my favorite part of my job is being able to be a part of long-term relationships. And my favorite event we just had recently is our graduation. So all of our kids, all the high schoolers that graduating and their mentors, we have a celebration for them.
Oh, and wonderful.
So and a lot of them, like I had like 3 or 4 that I had supported throughout the years. And it's just so cool to see those relationships like how their relationship fostered and grew, and they're just like a part of each other's family. So yeah, it's really cool.
That sounds really cool and very rewarding, actually, for everyone. Just a quick, because I don't even know that I have a great grasp of Big Brothers and Big Sisters. I do know this. Denzel Washington has talked about that. I think Denzel Washington and has talked about that, and maybe even a few other celebrities have talked about the importance of it. But in a nutshell, in about a minute and a half, 2 minutes, whatever, share with us exactly, the kids that are in the program. Are they at-risk kids? Are they orphans? Are they looking to be adopted? What's the criteria, or what's the framework on that?
Yeah, so most of the kids in our program, I would say, probably have some sort of risk factors. Not every single one of them, but I would say probably the majority of the kids in the program, I would say, come from single parent homes. We do have kids that are in foster care. And then of course, we have kids that come from 2-parent homes, and the parents really want their child to have another adult person in their life, because as we know, it takes a village, to raise a child.
It does.
And so, and it's between the ages of 6 and they stay in the program until they're 18. So 6 to 18.
Okay. So what's the earliest age that they can enter into the program and start the mentoring process?
Yeah. 6 years old.
Oh, 6 years old. I missed that. Okay. So 6 to 18. Mm-hmm. Wow. That's so all through school, basically.
Basically all through school. Yeah.
All through school. Mm-hmm. Oh, I think I just saw Jesus smile. I mean, I think this is definitely would be part of the Father's heart. I mean, because of anytime we have a chance to pour positively into our local communities and into children's lives, it's always a plus for everybody. So I think that's just beautiful and you're still work there, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Awesome. Forgive me, this is just what I do. I go back and I reiterate. So masters, working with their brothers and sisters, and then big brothers and big sisters, and you're married. And so at what point, I know you're now a certified prophetic healer of the heart. Mm-hmm. And with the concentration, is it grief or trauma?
Yeah, so actually I have 2 different healing modalities. So prophetic heart healing is one modality, and then grief recovery method is a different modality. So they're like 2 different healing.
Okay. All right. So let's take them one at a time. Grief recovery. How did you get involved in that?
Yeah, so my pastor actually introduced me to grief recovery. He is a certified specialist as well. And I had gone through some counseling with him. And through the time, he's like, I think, maybe this might be a good fit for you. And because, when most people think of grief, they think of like losing a loved one.
Right.
And I was like, well, I'm not that person, but I definitely had gone through a period, like Jeff and I had gone through probably about a decade of different struggles, like financially, we both have had health struggles. And so it took a toll. It took a toll on me, took a toll on our relationship. And so he was like, hey, why don't you try this? And I was like, it sounds great. I want to kind of get any other kind of modality of healing I'm open to. And so I went through the process, and I realized, wow, I didn't realize how much pain I had been carrying just in feeling like overwhelmed, feeling stressed. And I had some resentment built up as well. And so it really helped me to process through those feelings. Mm-hmm. Because, like when we go through changes, or when things feel big and heavy to us, it's normal to kind of feel a sense of loss. That's a normal part of life.
It is, yes.
And we often don't walk through those feelings. We kind of push them away. I'm one that shuts down. So I, shut down a lot when things that get stressful, I would just shut down.
Right.
And so grief recovery really helped me to kind of process through and be more aware just in general, like how I'm feeling, and be able to voice those feelings. So yeah, that's how I kind of got involved.
It sounds like it should be a vital part of any local church. I mean, because, as you know, I'm a widow, but I've also, as you mentioned, grief is not just tied just to that, but it's also tied to, prior to that, I'm also divorced. And so you have death of a dream, death, or for people who aren't able to conceive and they've had miscarriages. Or the loss of a job or whatever it is, loss of a parent. And you're right. Is just life is full of losses, and you're correct in saying I think the majority of it, because we get all of these floods of feelings, we just don't know what to do with them. And the church for so long has said, just sweep it under the rug. It doesn't exist. Or whatever we say, because we're uncomfortable with it. And so I applaud your efforts to work through your own grieving, and because it is a process, and as you found, you discovered a lot about yourself.
Yes.
And so I think that's wonderful. Is that affiliated with the grief recovery program that's like kind of nationwide that I see across? Okay.
It's Grief Recovery Method.
Okay.
It's nationwide. Actually, it's worldwide.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Didn't know that. Good to know. So, and do you participate in those meetings? Do you facilitate those meetings, or how do you play a part in that? I guess that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, so I facilitate groups. I facilitate groups helping people walk through their grieving process in a group setting. And I do that both in person, and I can do that online as well. And then I also work with people one-on-one, where I can just work with a person. And that's the process I went through, is one-on-one. Okay. And just kind of take people step by step through the process. And it's an action-based process. So, you work through specific things, and it's either 7 weeks one-on-one or 8 weeks in a group. So there's a beginning and an end to it. You're not spending, like there's other groups I know where you spend time sharing, and that's part of it, but that's only a piece of it. You're really trying to help get them through to completing the pain of that loss. Doesn't mean you don't feel sad again, or you don't have emotion about it. It's just that you're not stuck in that pain, and it doesn't keep you imprisoned.
Gotcha. Because we can get imprisoned by our own pain. Absolutely. And not able to move forward, and you don't know why. I've been there, done that. So I get that. So it's an 8-week or 7-week program. There's a book or workbook that goes along with it. Okay.
Yes. So I actually have the book right here.
Oh, awesome. We'd love to see that. Grief Recovery Handbook. There you go, people. How much is the book, and how much is it to participate in the grief recovery?
Yeah, so the book is only about, I can get it on, the cheapest I can find it is about $10 on Amazon. Okay. This one, I like the hardback one. They're a little bit more, but and then depending on if you want to do group or one-on-one is $700 for the 7 weeks. And then group is $400 for the 8-week program. Okay. And then I also do helping children with loss. And so that is actually helping parents, caregivers, anyone that works with children, and teaching parents and parents and people working with children how to teach children how to walk through their loss. If that makes sense.
Yeah. I think we overlook children. We think so often that they don't, or we don't want them to share, because their feelings are so big and they have no problem expressing that normally, if they're not squelched, right? And I can applaud my daughter she has helped her daughter Isla, my granddaughter, express her feelings. And the other day she's like, Mom, she was talking about how mad she was, and she's just talking about how big it was, but it's getting smaller. you know, and so I think it's very important that we, help, because it just builds a better foundation for them growing into adults. And so I think
Yes.
that's very important work. I love that. um, Remind me to, we will post a link to your website so people can reach out to you about that, get further information about that.
Yeah.
I think that is so exciting, and much needed work.
Yeah, it's because children, like they don't express grief in the same way because we have
Right.
our filters and we can push things down, and kids kind of just like it's all there.
It's all
And
there out in the open. Yeah. Whoop, whoop.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
if we're not attuned to it, often we can shut them down. Like one of the myths about grief we talk about is don't feel bad.
Right.
And we do that so automatically with kids.
We
I
do.
find that myself
Oh,
doing,
just be happy. Yeah.
yeah, I find
Be
myself
happy that
doing,
Mandy, your friend, is here, right?
right.
Right.
Yeah.
Or whatever we
And I do
say.
that with my
Yeah.
son sometimes. And I just feel like, oh man, I should be attuned and listening, like, and asking him questions instead
Yeah.
of just like, oh, don't feel bad. It'll get better.
Yeah.
Like
Or
we're
it's
just,
normal to feel this way and not
yeah.
follow through. You're using a word, and I'm familiar with it because I do IP, manual prayer or manual practicum, attuning. Hit on that for just a minute for our listeners who might not know what that, because I know there's my understanding, it's a fine line between attuning and empathy.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what is attuning for our listeners and to help us understand what that is?
Yeah, I would say, yeah, attuning, you're right. It is different than empathy. Empathy is very important too, because that is like kind of giving voice to a person's, feelings. But attuning is, I feel like I think of like listening with your heart. We in grief recovery, we call it being a heart with ears.
Okay.
And so, listening with your whole heart without thinking about like the next thing that you're trying to interject. And like we often with grief, we try to intellectualize, oh, little Johnny, your friend is moving away. Oh, well, you'll get new friends, like that's an intellectual statement, but he's sad about losing the friends. And so
Yeah.
we need to address that. So I say like picking up on like what's beneath what the child is sharing or the person is sharing, what's underneath what they just said.
Yeah. Or what are they not saying?
Yes, exactly.
And I don't do this well. I just screwed it up with one of my own family members about a week ago, and so I totally did not do it well at all. So, can you give us an example of, like, are there questions that you might ask when you're tuning to someone that maybe that would help us have a better understanding?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say, I mean, like a really simple one is, if somebody's sharing something about like they're stressed about or they're feeling sad about, oh, tell me more about that.
Tell me more. Okay.
Tell me more about that.
Tell me more.
And
Okay.
also then what happened? Like what happened in that situation? Because a lot of times people get like, oh yeah, they'll start sharing, and then we try and give advice. Like the thing we go to is, oh,
Right.
I'm gonna give advice and interject, but really a person just needs to be able to share what it was like to be them in that moment.
In that moment. Tell me more. And what happened?
Yep.
I probably need to tattoo that on my arm somewhere. Tell me more. That might be a good tattoo to have. I love that. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. Um, so, really quickly on the grief recovery, if that is something that a local church wants to implement or offer, can they just go to like a website and ask for more information and implement that? Or does that make sense? Or do you offer the program?
Yeah. So if like someone wants to have it at their church, they would need to find a grief recovery specialist either in their area, or if their church wanted to do it online, find someone online, I can do that online.
Okay.
But if they want someone local, they can just look up on the Grief Recovery Method website, and you can find people in your area. So it has to be a certified person that walks people through the process. But yeah, definitely you can, it's easy to do that because people are more than willing, specialists I know are more than willing to work with churches. My first group I did was with a local church, and it's just such a cool thing to share, because Grief Recovery Method isn't necessarily, it's not a Christian based program. It wasn't designed that way because because everybody's on their own spiritual journey, right, and with the Lord. And so, and when you go through grief, that can bring up a lot of anger towards God for people.
Amen.
And sure that's okay.
I mean, it does. And anger is part of the steps of grief, as you know. Yeah.
So it's normal to feel those feelings. And so we don't want to that's the way the method is designed. That's everybody can participate.
Just like your local 12 steps. I mean, 12 steps is open to everybody. You don't have to be a believer to be a part. So I'm glad to hear that. And that opens the door for a lot of opportunities. That's excellent. So moving from there to the prophetic side of what you do, I'm not familiar. It was a brand new thought process for me to consider the prophetic side of this. But talk to us about that and how what did you first hear of that, or be introduced to that? Tell us what that's like.
Yeah, so actually a friend of mine is the one who introduced me to heart healing. He was involved in a group, and he was like, oh, I see you as being a heart healer. And I was like, I don't even know what that is, but sounds interesting. And then he invited me to the group as well. And I kind of got to know some people in the group. And the woman who I am certified with, she did these group heart healing sessions. And I just watched like a recording of one, and I was like, whoa, this is so cool. And so really what prophetic heart healing is really I facilitate a person in like a prayer session where we just sit and listen to the Lord for that person. And I kind of guided them along the way in that process. That's my role. And then I kind of help facilitate like unpacking what that looks like for them. That's really, I love it because it's like teaching people how to hear from God for themselves. That's kind of the best way I can describe it.
It sounds similar to IP, which uses something similar, but that sounds so beautiful. I mean, I love the idea of people. I mean, because it's really a lot what it's all about anyways. Us and our number one is our relationship with him and knowing who he is for us. And what a better way to learn the Father's heart than through healing, right?
Yes.
And so I know you're certified in that, so you were trained and and that was like a year-long process, or what did that look like to you?
Yeah, so it's like for me it was some people it's a year-long process, but I kind of took the accelerated path because I just wanted to dive in, and I just loved it and wanted to get certified. So for me it was a 6 months very intensive process. A lot of hours practicing and working with others who are also learning as well, and then doing my own, leading people through the process as well. So yeah, and I just love it, and I just feel like for me, I was drawn to it because I'd gone through counseling, which was helpful, and I had just gone through grief recovery, and I was like, oh wow, I feel like freer from some of that pain. And then there was the spiritual side. And I just felt like I needed a touch from the Lord in a unique way that only that the Lord can only heal that place, in your heart. And
absolutely.
that's what I feel like the Lord really just loved on me through my training and my own process with it. And then now I'm like, now I just love sharing that with others.
Awesome. Oh, wow. So in the prophetic part of the healing, how does that work? Like if I was interested and booking a session with you, and then is it normally more than one session, or is it what does that look like? Or does it vary?
Yeah. So the prophetic part of to answer your first question, the prophetic part of the heart healing is really just like I listen to through the session, I listen to the Lord for that person. And if he gives me, almost always, he gives me a scripture for the person that I have found that is like very unique for that person and that where they're at. And then any other kind of encouragements or things that the Lord kind of shows me, I share. So that's the prophetic part. It's like the Lord does the speaking to them, and then the Lord speaks through me as well, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. So what are they just basically sharing a piece of their story or something that they are struggling with as far as grieving? Does that make sense? I mean,
Yeah, it
why?
could be anything. Some
Okay,
people just want to come. Some people have, most of the time, people have like a specific thing they want to kind of address. But other times people just want to come because they just want to experience it, like what it's like.
gotcha.
Yeah.
What it's like. Gotcha.
Yeah. And so,
Okay.
so I offer out, it's an hour-long session. And usually I would say some people come for one time and they really like that. But I would say the people that I've worked with who come and do multiple sessions actually get the most benefit from it, because then it kind of gets into your DNA, and then you can actually take it into your daily life.
Okay.
And so I'd say at least for the best benefit, at least 3 sessions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that is just, thank you for sharing, because I really didn't understand what the whole concept was about. I mean, as far as the prophetic side, but very much needed, because I think ultimately he's the healer of our hearts, and he's definitely near to the brokenhearted. And so, and I have not understood that till recently. I mean, what that looks like, that he can actually heal, and deeply. And so I'm grateful for your work, and that is just beautiful. It really is much, much needed and appreciated. So that is exciting. Can you share with us your website? I know you have a website where people can get in touch with you, and share that. Just share that link with us, if you would, please.
Yeah. It's pretty simple. It's thefavorfinder.com.
Okay.
Is
Favor finder. Okay.
Yeah.
FAVOR.
Yeah, it's so
Okay.
THE.
Okay. The favor finder.
Yeah,
.com. Okay.
.com.
And I will be sharing that link later as when I share this whole wonderful episode with Jamie. And thank you again so much for today, for sharing about your gifts and for the ministry that God has led you into. And it's just so evident that is your heart. And it just, it always excites me when I see how God orchestrates and lays things out. And so it's no coincidence that we met. I don't believe in that. We both have a heart for healing and bringing it to the body of Christ, and just anybody who basically needs to have their hearts healed. And so that's beautiful. But thank you again, Jamie, and thank you, listeners, for tuning in to this session of Healing Moments with Martha. And we will be sharing again soon. Thank you.